Oh, yes. I just wanted to look at Section 29, the Constitution mandatory. Yes. The provisions of this Constitution are mandatory unless by express words they are declared otherwise. Now, you're saying, well, we actually can file that misdemeanor 2-count criminal complaint? Yes. And we can not require the petitioner to acknowledge the order. Pooch. But when it says felony, I think it means felony. Now, I could sue you for violating the mandatory provisions of the Washington State Constitution for you making excuses why it is that you don't enforce the laws. Now, I'm wanting to sell this, and I want to see for myself if it works like I think it does. And I'm wanting you in the Sheriff's Department to enforce the mandatory provisions of the Constitution. I've had this problem with those in office. That they seem to think that there are exceptions to every rule and that the laws are not enforceable as written. Pooch. Now, somewhere in that Constitution, it says that you cannot have your travel paid for by bus, airplane, or train. Yes. And you're in oath of office, and you thought, well, I better help myself to a vacation today, and one of your constituents decides to pay for your travel. Yes. Could you get me the actual travel of every oath, badge, attorney, judge, justice, and mandatory reporters that just found out that it is a requirement of all civil court proceedings that the petitioner has to appear in court, has to institute the court hearing, and has to acknowledge the court order? There is no exception to the rule that you just don't like the respondent. Now, I'm going to want to know where you traveled for the last 40 years and who it was that paid for your actual travel, because if you look at that Constitution, it is prohibited to pay for the travel of any oath of office right now. Now, I would say there's that pecuniary benefit of having somebody pay for your travel. Did anyone buy you plane tickets to a junket, a conference, a global forum, pooch, one of those mandatory meetings because you're a sheriff, a police officer, or any other oath of office, and you thought, well, I might as well help myself some. Now, let's say I found out that you're in the King County Sheriff's Department. You decided that you would allow for all the sheriff's meetings to be paid by somebody else, and you just had to be there because you're that sheriff that got 100% on their whoops got 100% on their rating from the state of Washington, Bill Benedict. Pooch. Now, I know that there was some publicized news that as the senior sheriff of Washington State, when the state of Washington went through and looked at your sheriff's department and the jail, you got 100% rating. But wasn't it somewhat deceitful to not include the violating of the laws of the United States? Now, for each and every audit of every department, did they ask you who paid for this travel? Choo-choo, choo-choo. Why don't you get me all the travel for the last 40 years and every audit of every police, sheriffs, those that are in law enforcement, the oaths that had to travel from here to there? You are Kimmer and you live in Port Angeles and you had to take a flight from Fairchild. Yes. Did you pay for that out of your own money? Or did somebody, is that part of the budget of those in office that the state pays for all travel of all elected oaths? But what if they didn't? You keep your budget expenses down? I'd like to know the audits of all of those in law enforcement. Could you get that for me right now?